Hi there, everyone. So thank you so much for joining us all today. Today, Enterprise and Target Jobs are doing a really exciting collaboration to discuss everything about what jobs can you do with a social science degree. So hi to everyone. We do have the chat function there. So please pop your names in, pop where you're from, and we're going to get started straight away. So first things first, probably a good idea to do some introductions. So my name is Louise Sivwright. I am a talent acquisition marketing specialist with Enterprise Rent-A-Car. So I work with 17 universities across the northeast of England, all the way up from Sunderland down to Nottingham. And my main job is to market our graduate training programme, to also discuss any career opportunities with Enterprise and get to know our prospective employees. I'm also joined today with Jess and Mark. So Jess, if you want to introduce yourself, please.
Hi everyone, my name's Jess. I work for Enterprise Rent-A-Car as well. However, I work in a more traditional HR function, so I'm primarily a business partner to the senior leadership team. I've been with the company for about 6 years now. I've been in a variety of roles, including the graduate scheme, so looking forward to talking to you about that.
Thanks, Jess. And Mark, if you would like to introduce yourself, please.
Hi everyone, I hope you're keeping well. My name's Mark Grant and I'm an employability advisor from Northumbria University. So employability advisor, just a fancy title for careers advisor. So I've worked at Northumbria University for around 13 years now in a variety of different roles as well, ranging from student mobility, so study abroad, Erasmus, things like that, to placements and ultimately in this role in Graduate Futures Careers Service now. So my background was in sports science and I also trained to be a PE teacher as well, so slightly different career path that I've ended up on, but yeah, glad to be with you today.
Thanks so much to both of you. So yeah, we're going to be talking today all things social sciences. And just before we get started as well, it's great to see that we've got some people from Dundee, we've got some people from Newcastle and France. Oh, I wish I was in France right now. That would be much nicer than up north in Darlington. But yeah, that is perfect. Thank you all so much for being here today. So just as a little bit of an icebreaker before we get started, I just want to pop out a little poll just to see where everyone is at in their degree journey at the moment. So as you can see, there's a little poll coming out. I just want to see if you're at college and you're just choosing your degree, if you're in your first year, second year, third year, if you're a postgraduate student. It will be really good just to get to know and see where everyone's coming from. So if everyone just wants to pop in that poll where they're from, and it looks as though people are popping that through now, which is great. We've got some postgraduates taking the lead at the moment, which is great. Thank you so much for joining us today. Couple of third years. A lot of people, it seems, tends to be in university at the moment already, which is excellent. Great to see that you're all thinking about your future career steps. So what are we actually talking about today is probably a good place to get started. So first things first, we're going to be talking about why social science degrees are attractive to employers, the transferable skills that we learn, and also those all-important employment opportunities out there for people with a social science degree. And I'm going to be drawing on obviously Mark's experience and Jess's as well, just so we can get a massive range of information about social sciences and those future career aspects. So really, really good to get into that today. And we also want to know, what are you currently studying at university before we move on to the first? So do we have people that are actually studying social science? So we've got sociology, we've got some anthropology. I find anthropology so interesting as well. MSc Inequality in Society. Oh, I've not heard of that one before. Mark and Jess, have you heard of that, Inequality in Society?
No, it sounds interesting though.
It does sound interesting.
It's not one I've heard of, but yeah, sounds good.
Yeah, amazing. Got some more sociology there, some psychology, social policy and rights, digital culture and communication. So there's a massive range of people here, all from different disciplines of social science, which is excellent. That is what we want today. Perfect. So moving on into what makes social sciences a good degree. So social science is a wide-ranging umbrella term, really, and the common theme is each discipline aims to explore the connection between the human world and society through different methods. One of the reasons that social sciences are so good to study is it gives you those flexible career options that we're going to be talking about today. We will be touching more on the specific skills you learn whilst doing a social science degree in a moment, but studying social sciences in general tends to make you very employable. The appeal is broad because the many subjects that come under that social science umbrella provide fascinating insights into employment, into the public and private sectors, families, workplaces, and employers are generally quite keen to recruit in that social science area because they have those all-important analytical and communication skills that a successful business and society needs. To widen individual choices of graduates and meet those social needs, the report on the screen here shows the importance of having a social science degree. So as you can see, a 2013 report carried out showed that at 3.5 years after graduating, the proportion of social science graduates in employment is higher than that of STEM subjects. That's your standard science, technology, engineering, and your mathematics. And then also more social science graduates are in managerial and senior official roles than graduates of a STEM subject. So both of those statistics there are just showing how important a good social science degree is and those important career opportunities that it can create for you. As well, just quickly, 9 in 10 social science graduates are working, continuing their studies, or both a year after graduation. So it's great to see that after graduation, that year after, people are already in work and aren't unemployed from finishing their social science degrees. Now, Mark, obviously you have a lot of experience in the social science field. What do you think makes social science a good degree? If you could sum it up.
I think, to summarize it very concisely, I think it's the breadth of transferable skills that you're able to develop in social sciences that give you such an advantage as students and as graduates. You know, employers aren't looking, certainly at a graduate level, for students to be the finished article, so to speak, in their particular areas. What they're looking for is a kind of a range of skills and attributes where you're going to be able to go in to make a really valuable contribution, to be kind of fitting with the existing culture and kind of the team ethic there, and to really just contribute really positively. And I think the insights and experiences that social sciences students have got can enable you to do that really positively. And I think it is kind of considering the impacts of kind of society and kind of the impacts on community groups and individuals, how all of those kind of policies and decisions can really impact that. I think that's what put you at a real advantage with the social sciences degree.
Definitely, 100%. I would definitely agree. And Jess as well, obviously, we will touch a little bit on your background in a moment, because I know that you came from a social science background, but do you feel, you've obviously chosen to study a social science at university, which we will cover, but are you happy with that choice? Do you feel like it really gave you some good options?
Yeah, absolutely. So I did like a split degree, so it was half social science, half humanities. But I agree with Mark completely. I think it's just the breadth of transferable skills that you pick up. It's not necessarily the content as such. Obviously, I'll touch on it later, but I did history, so that's not really useful in my current role. But the skills that I learned whilst studying history are really useful, yeah.
Yeah, excellent. So that brings us really nicely into the next section, which is what specific skills do social sciences teach? And just as well, I should have mentioned at the beginning, please do feel free to pop any questions throughout the duration of this session. If they are specific to that slide, we'll answer it then and there. If not, we will be doing a quick question answer session at the end as well. So please do pop your questions through there all the way throughout. So what specific skills do social sciences teach? So like we've already mentioned, all three of us, they teach you a wide range of skills that are important for the working world, and we are going to cover some of them now. So social science disciplines gives you the ability to not only analyze text, data, and research, but also how to then persuasively communicate that perspective and interpretations to an audience, which is so important in the working world. You'll be taught how to put together reasoned arguments whilst communicating that concisely, clearly, and analytically. No matter where you go, strong communication skills will benefit you. It doesn't matter what line of work you're in. You are going to have to communicate with other people, probably at some point. So social science degree is really key in teaching you those important communication skills. Alongside that, you'll also develop strong research skills through qualitative and quantitative research methods. Obviously, I'm sure most of the people watching this now, as we could see in the poll at the beginning, are already studying these social sciences. So I'm sure you are familiar with those two methods. But it also teaches you vital decision-making skills, the ability to define problems, critically analyze and evaluate information as well, which is so important, again, to any strand. A lot of the skills as well tend to be able to identify patterns and question evidence, which is essential anywhere. And just, again, really going back to those key communication skills, that tends to be what comes out of most reports of people that have studied social science degrees tend to have a lot better communication skills than those who don't. Mark, would you agree that communication skills are really up there with one of the most important things that students take from these disciplines?
Absolutely. I think time and time again, I think it's rare that you would look at, say, a job description and see one that doesn't list communication skills almost as the most important, interpersonal skill listed. So I think, absolutely. I think, as you mentioned, Louise, I think the ability to collaborate and work on good projects, to kind of to research and to kind of make those informed decisions and kind of rationale behind that. I think it helps you to develop a wide range of communication skills. And not only is that just verbal, as we kind of fully aware, using the different platforms that we are nowadays, that could be utilizing online technology, could be in written reports, so the various different platforms that you're able to take advantage of. It's a huge advantage in social sciences, and certainly something that graduate employers will continually look for.
100%. And that's not only, I think people often think communication skills aren't as important as those business skills or work experience, but even, if you're a student and you work in a bar, or you're a waitress or a waiter, you're going to be learning those communication skills, which are vital, not only for customer service, but, business, politics, law, anything at all. Being able to interact with people is so important. Jess, in your line of work, what do you think are the important skills that you learn in your degree that have helped you today?
I think obviously communication, but we've touched on that. I think for me, it's probably more of the critical thinking and being able to view things, from different sides of different arguments. In my role in particular, things can be quite subjective, so you do need to look at things from different points of view in order to figure out, a course of action. So I think that, looking at reports, looking at kind of sources and analysing them as such from different points of view have really helped with that.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's one of the main skills that also comes out of social science, like we mentioned, is that ability to analyse and evaluate not only just data like numbers, but words as well. So that all important qualitative information, when you're analysing interviews or, looking at verbatim statements, being able to analyse that information and then interpret that and then persuasively interact with people and convince them of your point is so important. So we did actually have a little conversation going on in the chat here. So we wanted to see what skills you felt your degree have taught you. So I'll go through a few here that people have said. So we've got analytical skills, like we've mentioned, critical thinking again, super important. Reflexivity, that's a really good one. And I hadn't actually thought of that as one of the skills, but that's excellent. And again, just general extensive skills. And it seems that everyone seems to be pretty much in agreement that social sciences do teach people a wide variety of skills, which is great. And as well, just before we move on, it's important to note that the use of technology in social science degrees is massive as well. And again, that can really help you with future careers. So the ability to use not only just, Microsoft programs, but also I know that there's, research design like SPSS and similar things like that can help you if you want to go down the research and analytical route. So those skills, those ICT skills as well are really invaluable.
Perfect. I think over the last, particularly over the last couple of years, Louise, I think, our hands been force. And, we've all had to be very adaptable to that, and certainly that's the same for social sciences students, where we've had to pick up new systems and platforms. And I think it isn't always the case of saying that I can do kind of all of these, but showing that you're able to pick up new processes really quickly, that you can learn those skills and embed them effectively. That's the key for employers. I think with all of these skills, before obviously Louise moves on, I think, it's very easy for us to take our kind of development over the course of our undergraduate degree or postgraduate degree for granted, and not to think about the skills that we've been able to utilize and develop through that period of time. Obviously, in my conversations with students, one of the big things that comes up is that I don't necessarily have experience in that area, so therefore I'm unable to demonstrate those skills. But my response to that is, think of those modules, those collaborative modules, those group work presentations that you've done, and try and draw out those skills using those particular examples. And I'm sure, as we've said before, I think we often overcomplicate what skills we think employers are looking for, and time again, it is those interpersonal skills that we'll have kind of an abundance of examples that we could demonstrate those with.
Definitely. It's literally as simple as that as well. Like you say, Mark, I think especially when you're going to apply for jobs, it's quite easy to get bogged down in the practical things that they want you to have. So all of the qualifications or the work experience, and it's quite easy to get lost in that, rather than really selling yourself and the skills that you have learned. Even, we've got some in the chat there talking about time management and ability to prioritize. That in itself is massive and comes with any degree. So most students, and I'm sure most people watching now, will be juggling university work and a personal life and a work life. And even that in itself is a very important skill that comes out of any degree, the ability to time manage and to prioritize your time effectively in the working world, especially for myself. And I work from home, and it's up to me to prioritize that time. Is a really invaluable skill to learn. So yeah, great point, Mark. And I don't know, Jess, if there's anything you want to add before we move on to the next slide.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right, both of you, in that I think we overthink perhaps the skills that employers are looking for. But like Mark alluded to at the beginning, we're not looking for the finished project. A lot of your kind of graduate employers are looking for, moldable skills, wanting you to be able to adapt to their workplace. So the skills in themselves are the most important part, not necessarily, I can specifically do this exact thing that you're asking for.
Definitely, 100%. So moving on, this is the nitty gritty of it. What jobs can you do with a social science degree? That is what we're all here for today. And like I say on the screen, spoiler alert, it is a lot. The options out there are massive. There is a wealth of different opportunities and career pathways that you can go into. And social science, like we've already mentioned, it teaches you such a wide range of transferable skills that are really applicable to any role. And again, before we start, I would just like to see from those in the chat, how many people watching have started to think about graduate jobs after university? Have you started to think about what it is that you want to do? Are you starting to take a gap year after all the pandemic stuff? It will be great for you to pop in there what you're thinking of doing as we move on to discuss the career options. And just whilst you're doing that, the way that this presentation is going to work is we've broken down the social science discipline individually, and we're going to discuss the generic pathways from those disciplines, and then discuss at the end some careers that you maybe wouldn't have thought of if you are a little bit more open-minded into what it is that you want to do. Oh, yes, I know what I want to do. Love that. Love the confidence there. It's always great to know exactly where you're heading. Someone wanting to do some more postgraduate, which is super ambitious. Have a rough idea, but there's so much to choose from. And that is something that is so important at the moment. And I don't know, Mark and Jess, if you've got anything on that, is post-pandemic, we're finding that there are so many opportunities out there in comparison to pre-pandemic. So many employers have got choices in there. It's sometimes easy to get a little bit overwhelmed. Mark, Jess, I don't know if you've got any advice on that one before we move on.
Yeah, absolutely. It is overwhelming. And I think, when we see there's one of the comments that, yes, I know what I want to do, I think that's the minority of people. So if you are in that position where you don't necessarily have a clue, or you want to, considering a few different options, that's absolutely fine. I think my advice would just be, do as much research as you possibly can, and don't just kind of think, it's fine to think of those traditional pathways, which we'll touch on, but really broaden your horizons and think about what your motivations are, what you're passionate about, what you're interested in, and just explore everything. Look at different job paths, look at roles that are available, research the employers. Is that the type of employer that you want to work for? And I think, yeah, it's very time consuming to do that, but the more effort you can put into that, the more of an informed decision you can make. And, and obviously not making this about me, I did a sports science degree and went straight into a PGC in secondary PE teaching because that was probably an easy pathway for me to kind of take without really giving it too much thought and consideration. Now, in hindsight, obviously in my role now, I wish I had taken a little bit more time at that point to think, is that really what I want to do? Is that the kind of direction I want to go in? And perhaps I wouldn't have made that decision at that point. So my advice would be research, think what your passions and your motivations are, and just, really consider all options. Don't close the door to particular opportunities.
Definitely. Jess, I don't know if you've got anything you want to add on to that.
Yeah, pretty similar. I think, do a lot of research on the companies you're applying for. Read their mission statement. For me, it was all about finding a company that aligned with my personal values. And I haven't personally looked back on that decision. I have since, kind of gone into postgraduate study in order to kind of better my career of enterprise. But I think just think about the longevity of things. This is going to be your job, not necessarily for life, but, this is something that you're going to go into and spend a good few years of your time, invested into. So just make sure it works for you as well.
Yeah, great advice. And again, on a tangent, it's really important to utilize the facilities and the resources that your university will give you when looking for a job, not only sort of the careers and employability service, but also those careers fairs. And when employers come to speak at uni lectures, make sure that you are attending. I know there's nothing worse than, say, a lecture on employability on a Friday afternoon, but it's so important to go there. And just to broaden your horizon, and obviously network as well. And it's really great to see in the chat some people wanting to branch out into areas that maybe wouldn't be associated with their degree, which is excellent, because that is the whole point of this session today, is to look at exploring different avenues. So let's get started with psychology. So I am a psychology graduate. That is my background. So I'm going to be leading this slide today. So I went into psychology straight from school. I picked it not because I wanted to really pursue a career in psychology, but because I enjoyed it at school. I know I was going to want to learn about it. And I knew that those transferable skills I was going to learn were going to help me in whatever I decided to do, because at 18 years old, I didn't have a clue what I wanted to do. So I thought I'll pick something that I enjoy and I will stick with it. So if we're exploring psychology and the standard routes, obviously the generic route for a psychology degree tends to be more into the clinical, forensic, biology, biological and cognitive route. So actually becoming a registered psychologist in that trade. That's an obvious choice. That's what a lot of people tend to go into psychology for, is because they want to expand and branch out into that. Now, it is a little bit of a long route. It can take around about 6 years to be able to do that, which is one of the reasons why I scrapped that pretty early on. I didn't have the the drive to do that. And to be able to do that, you most likely have to have a master's in that specific discipline and then go on to do your PhD or your doctoral degree. So around about 6 years, we say, for that normally. The other potential route is more so the counselling route. So that does have a preferable master's or doctorate as well, but it's not, you don't have to have it the same as if you're going into to specialise in psychology. But the best thing to do for that would be to refer to the British Association for Counselling and Psychotherapy, because they will have exactly what you need on there. The most important thing, if you are wanting to go into sort of a psychologist or psychotherapist route, is you need that work experience. And that is what is going to make you stick out from the crowd. So what I would really recommend in that instance is doing some sort of internship, placement, work experience in the field that you're interested in, because that is really going to help you to go forward. And the next slide as well, I'm going to ask Mark for his expertise on this, because obviously it's criminology and sociology. So Mark, you can take the floor with this one.
Thanks, Louise. Yeah, so I work very closely with the School of Social Sciences in Northumbria, and two of the big programs that we run are criminology and sociology programs. So criminology, I think we typically kind of, we look at those very traditional routes, and even, here at Northumbria, most students will want to be involved in some aspect of law enforcement. So if we look at policing is probably the most traditional route way that, our kind of graduate entry level programs where our graduates from undergraduate programs can go straight into those. They're typically around 2 years in duration. Most police constabularies will have their own pathway to, and again, you can find those out on the individual websites. There's also organizations such as Police Now who will have schemes that you guide to, and you can select your preferences of where you'd like to be based. So that's kind of police constable routes, almost the traditional route into policing. But I think with policing, you have to almost tackle those misconceptions of what's out there, of various different roles and kind of opportunities available to you. You could go direct into one of the graduate entry detective programs. So similarly, most constabularies and Police Now will have their schemes that you can apply to, again, 2 years in duration. But again, there's various other roles in terms of, you could go into kind of crime scene investigation, you could go into call handling, administrative support teams, cybercrime, various different departments and roles that you can go into with limited experience. But as Louise mentioned before, most police constabularies will have volunteer and kind of part-time work schemes where you can go and get that insight and experience that will support your application and support your training. Often if you've done a voluntary scheme, that can fast track you in terms of your training into particular roles. But there's other organizations that you could target, the likes of the Transport Police, you could look at Border Force, National Crime Agency, all will have a variety of different opportunities. So some of the other traditional career paths that we, again, here in Northumbria typically, discuss with our students, we could look at, if we want to categorize it in terms of courts and correction, we could look at something like the Prison and Probation Service. So you could go to the prison or a probation officer and work within the Prison and Probation Service, like I say. So that could be working with offenders on their rehabilitation. You could be an appropriate adult in a youth justice sector, so working with kind of young offenders, their rehabilitation and supporting them through that process. Or you may be on the other side of that, so you may be working in victim support with a variety of kind of third sector charity organizations. So that could be other pathways that our students take. Perhaps the more glamorous side of criminology, you could be working in almost intelligence and analysis, if you like. So the likes of our GCHQ, the MI6 government agencies, where you're working, counter-terrorism, analysing data, reporting and feeding that back to various different organisations to kind of, stop crime at that earliest point in time. So that information, that analysis, and like I say, that almost the glamorous side of crime that you may be familiar with the likes of Line of Duty and stuff like that. So they're kind of some of the different pathways into policing. With sociology, one of the key pathways, obviously, our students look to go into social work. As Louise mentioned with psychology, there are additional qualifications required to do that beyond an undergraduate degree, but that is still one of the most popular career paths that our students look towards. Other things that our students here at Northumbria and across the UK are interested in, going into welfare, so it could be in advice work or working with community organisations, a housing association, something like that. Or you could go into social research, so working with various different government organisations, local government, community organisations, populating, analysing data, using that to inform decisions, to inform policy, and really have that impact with those particular groups. But as with everything that we're going to discuss, that is a real small kind of snapshot of what's out there, and we could spend a whole hour talking about different career paths, traditional and a little bit alternative. But I'll hand back to Louise.
Perfect, Mark. Thank you. Excellent. So moving on to anthropology. I know at the beginning there are a couple of people here that are studying anthropology, which is great. So one of the main routes to go into after studying an anthropology degree is politics. So with the cross-cultural experience and expertise that you learn for this degree, anthropologists are highly sought after in the international arena, working for governmental bodies such as the UK government's Department for International Development, which is a mouthful, you can call it DFID, or intergovernmental organisations like ActionAid, Oxfam, charitable organisations and foundations is a very standard route for people that have done anthropology. These bodies seek expertise about human behaviour, particularly human responses to major world challenges. And there is obviously, because of the back end of the pandemic and obviously the crisis in Russia and Ukraine at the moment, there is a massive demand for people with this sort of background to be able to help with, endemic poverty, climate change, global health, those aspects. So again, anthropology is a great degree to study in the present climate of the world. The other sort of aspect you can go into in anthropology is the health aspect. So being able to study the complex interaction of biology and society, identifying the conditions that underline the poor health of many people worldwide, which again is an ongoing systemic issue and something that a lot of research still very heavily concentrates on. Anthropologists also play a key role keeping track of the implications of new health technologies in communities, finding opportunities in not only academia, but also biotechnology development, and again, those non-government organisations. So anthropology is an excellent subject to study if you're interested in a wide variety of things. And the good thing in anthropology as well is I know we had a couple of people that were considering travelling and wanting to combine the two. Again, anthropology is a great one to be able to have opportunities to work abroad because of the nature of that discipline. So yeah, anthropology is a really great one. And that leads us into the next day, which is archaeology. Now, I always associate this with Ross from Friends. I don't know if anyone else does. I think he was a paleontologist or something, but obviously you don't have to go in to be a paleontologist if you're doing anthropology. There are a lot of different career options. So people that study archaeology often go into a role linked with history, conservation, research, which again is a massive part of our community at the moment. Is all about climate change, conservation of not only like the environment, but also species of animal as well. And there's always an abundance of research going on in that field too. To be more specific, you can go in to be a Ross from Friends and work with museum and heritage management if you want, as well as local government work, national heritage bodies, so the National Trust, climate change managers, and so on. So another one that's really good to combine with this if you are a fan of the outdoors, archaeology is an excellent one because a lot of roles can be involved in that conservation and national heritage work. So that is a really good one to get into. And I just want to break up the talking with a little bit of a question time. So going back into the skills that we were talking about earlier, we've talked about the skills that you've learned, but what do you think it is that employers are looking for? What are the main skills that you think employers are looking for when they're sifting through those applications? If people want to pop in the chat there what they think employers are really looking for. Me as an employer, going back to those communication skills when I'm recruiting and sifting through communication skills is really important. Jess, I don't know if you have any sort of what would you look for in a candidate?
I think just the ability to be resilient and adapt to change. Obviously, the last 2 years have shown that kind of anything can be thrown our way. And if you're like a very resilient person who, is willing to learn and willing to kind of adapt with the company, then that is something that I think is really key for what I would look for.
Definitely. Mark, I don't know if there's anything you want to add there.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point from Jess about the resilience, and I think that's one of the kind of when we look at some of the reports and the stats coming back, it's huge to kind of to have that level of adaptability and flexibility. We've seen over the last 2 years how quickly things can change and go back and forth. So being able to kind of roll with those punches is massive. And I think we've touched on the kind of the digital skills as well. I think they're huge now that the world of work has changed and will continue to change and evolve. So being able to kind of to pick up those new processes and demonstrate those skills really effectively, going to be massive moving forward. But yeah, as we've touched on previously, I think a lot of it will come down to those communication, those interpersonal skills, and being able to kind of to fit in with those existing teams and cultures that are in place.
Definitely. I mean, we've got Sandra there in the chat, adaptability, and Frankie with teamwork as well. Both really, really good points. A lot of work, no matter what you do, you're going to have to work in a team. So as much as you may hate to interact with other people, there's definitely other people out there that prefer to work alone. You are going to have to adapt to be able to work in some aspect of a team. We actually did a webinar this morning that will be over on our YouTube channel about job applications and tailoring that from the job description. When you are applying for jobs, just look at that job description and tailor that to your application, and you know, take those skills that you've learned in your degree, which obviously we've discussed are so many, and make sure that you're tailoring that to job application as well, and that will really, really help you to increase your you know, the ability for you to be able to be considered as a potential candidate. So moving on to economics. Now, this is one that I didn't actually realise that economics was considered as a social science, which I found really interesting because we often associate economics with numbers. And I don't think I saw many people that did economics at the start, but it is a really, really good degree to study. A lot of people that do economics will go into some sort of numbers-based working environment, for example, financial risk, a data analyst, a financial planner, or more commonly an accountant, or that sort of route. But there is a strong demand for highly numerate graduates throughout the global labour market, as well as widely transferable analytical and problem-solving skills that are developed by economics students. That means that a career in economics are extremely wide-ranging and diverse. So again, talking about what we said at the beginning about the ability to analyse and produce data, that can be implied to anything. So those skills that you learn in an economics degree is not only just applicable to a numbers-based environment, but that can also be transferred over to working with people and qualitative or written data, I should say. So economics is a really good one. Moving on to geography. A geography degree, again, enables you to embark on a career in a range of fields, including those in education, commerce, industry, transport, tourism, and generally any public sector. Again, geography is a great one to study if you're a fan of the outdoors, because a lot of roles you know, are focused between the interaction between humans and the world, which will all be outside a lot of the time, these sorts of jobs. But you can also take a geography degree and turn that into sort of like a real estate. So you can go into commercial residential surveying, or an environmental consultant, planning and development, surveyors, social research. So again, geography doesn't always have to be about analysing maps and looking at waterfalls. It can be anything to do with anything with human and the environment are so important. And I'm going to hand over to Jess for this one. And Jess, you can tell us a little bit about your background with being a history student, and you know, some of the career aspects and avenues that you can go into.
Yep, of course. So I did English and history as a degree. So like I said at the start, kind of a half and half social science and humanity degree. Looking at the history side predominantly, a lot of the skills that I took away from that were the kind of analytical side, you know, being able to analyze a source, being able to communicate, you know, via presentations, via essays. And the thing is, so when I did my history degree, I didn't necessarily go into it thinking that I was going to go into a specific career. I knew for a fact I didn't want to be a teacher. I know that is a common kind of route with the history degree. But as I came to my third year, I was looking for opportunities. I wanted something that was very structured and offered me the kind of progression that I was looking for. So that's how I kind of fell into Enterprise's lap. I was actually the careers advisor for the Lincoln Business Society, and that's how I kind of got in touch with Enterprise Rent-A-Car. And it just offers you kind of a really well-rounded approach to a business. You know, we all start in the same place. Myself and Louise started in the exact same position, and it just kind of takes you through different aspects of the business. And that's when I really found my passion for human resources and working with people. And that's kind of how I've ended up in my role today. And from that, I've now since taken a postgraduate degree on, and that's in management and human resources. So not necessarily social science, but it's just kind of an evidence that you never really quite know where the history degree is going to take you, but if you know what skills you're learning from it, then obviously the world is your oyster. So.
Yeah, excellent. Thanks, Jess. Again, a great example of how you can do a subject that you just simply enjoy, and then turn that into something. A lot of the time now, employers are being a lot less specific with what with what degrees they actually want you to have. So in the past, I know maybe 5-10 years ago, it was we want somebody with a history degree. We want somebody with a politics degree. It's not like that anymore. They just say anyone with a degree, because employers recognize those skills that you learn aren't just fitting to one discipline. It's a very, very broad thing, and it can be applied to many different degree subjects. So yeah, again, history, you can go in to be a historian if you want to, or you can obviously go into teaching, heritage manager, historic building inspectors, museum gallery work, or obviously law. You can go down that standard solicitor route, civil service, or you can take those skills and you can apply them to a range of different careers. Moving on to linguistics, again, this was one that I hadn't really heard a lot of. I did a little bit of research into this one. I don't think many people study linguistics at the moment, or if they are, they're hidden somewhere because I can never find them. Stats do show that a lot of linguistic graduates tend to go on to be English as a foreign language teacher, which again gives you an excellent opportunity for travel, to work in countries abroad. Speech and language therapists, they can also go into where they can use that linguistic degree directly, such as working for dictionary compilers, proofreaders, editors, and then journalism as well. Post-pandemic, there is a massive influx of remote working jobs, and quite often these will be alongside that proofreading, editing, writing sort of avenue. So having a linguistics degree can definitely help you get into a position like that. Moving on to politics, I'm going to pass over again to Mark for this one.
Yeah, I think much like police that I mentioned earlier, I think, the misconceptions that you're going to go straight into government or to be an MP with politics. I think there's so many roles available within politics that are out there and available for graduates to apply to, and again from any degree discipline as well, typically. Now, one of the biggest ones is the civil service fast stream, and again that's working with a lot of government organisations in the UK and with scope to work internationally, so that may be with the Foreign Commonwealth Office or something like that. So there's international opportunities within that. A very competitive graduate scheme, but again it gives you an opportunity to get insights in those various different departments and government organisations and agencies that are available as well. You could go into roles like into policy, so policy officer, so research and analysing to advise governments, different NGOs, different organizations. It could be in business that you could go into policy advice as well. For example, one of the big graduate schemes is with the NHS, so they're always looking for social science graduates to go in their policy graduate schemes as well. So that's a really competitive scheme that there's a lot of interest in. It could be political assistance, so working with politicians, with MPs. You could go into journalism, so again, taking that passion, that interest into a slightly different area, reporting on that, working for newspapers and different publications, utilising those skills that you've been able to develop. Also public affairs, so again, it is about analysing data, taking information, research, informing, sharing that to make informed decisions, to inform policy, to inform those decisions within certain organisations. But again, a very, very broad category with lots of different opportunities there.
Thanks, Mark. And now moving on to careers you maybe wouldn't think of. So this is where we want to branch out a little bit, and we want to really capture those people that maybe have gone into their degree subject a little bit like it sounds me and Jess were. We've gone into it because we've enjoyed it, but we aren't really sure of what we want to do. And now is a great time for us to be able to discuss what sort of careers you can go into with the skills that these degrees learn that you maybe wouldn't have thought of. So I'll start off here with business. So obviously, like I said, I did a psychology degree. I somehow landed up in a business management training program. Which, like Jess mentioned before, Enterprise is a graduate management scheme. Everyone starts up at the same level and works their way upward, which is a really unique thing that we do offer. So I started off completely at the bottom, learned everything to know about business, because obviously I hadn't come from a business background. And business is an excellent one for social science students to get into. Business is all about communicating with people. That is the bare bones of it. It is using those interpersonal skills to maintain connections, make relationships, personal and professional, and being able to build your way up in the industry from the ability to be able to communicate with people. Also, business is all about taking and analysing data, like Jess was saying with HR, being able to take and analyze data, not only just sort of profits and losses, but all other aspects of a company, and then being able to interpret that to your team. If you do go into management, which is what our scheme is, you've not only got to interact with your team, but interact with customers, interact with clients, corporate customers. There is a wide range of things that business can offer. And obviously, off the back end of business, HR, like Jess was mentioning, is another massive avenue with excellent career progression and development opportunities there. I know Jess has spoken a little bit about her journey into HR, but I'm sure, as she mentioned before, she wasn't thinking she was going to get into HR when she was doing her history degree. And the skills that you do learn there are really great. And you will often see when you go into Indeed or Target Jobs or any sort of online recruitment platform, LinkedIn, the recruitment sites via university, you will see that there's a lot of HR roles there available. And they're always there and always recruiting. Marketing, again, is a huge one. I think a lot of people think that marketing is, you've got to be a digital marketer or you've got to be really great with tech. My role obviously has marketing in it, which is marketing people, essentially. And social science degrees, as we've mentioned a million times, will teach you those all-important communication skills to be able to market research. Mark and Jess, have you got any other careers that you can think of that people can go into with a social science degree that we've maybe not covered?
I think we've touched on it, but I think teaching's a kind of a big option for students with social science degree, and obviously that may be primary, secondary, maybe in further education, but there's lots of different pathways into teaching as well. And I think that's a big one that all students are always really interested in here at Northumbria. So teaching's, it's one to explore, and again, there's lots of different opportunities, again, both nationally in the UK and overseas as well. So lots of different pathways into teaching. But yeah, I just echo kind of what everyone that you've just touched on there, that there's no restrictions on where you can take your qualification. And I think it is a case of, say, for instance, with marketing, if you have a particular passion for that organization, and that's half the battle. If you can find something that you genuinely enjoy and you possess some of those skills the employers are looking for, that's half the battle to getting in there.
I was just going to touch on perhaps the information sector. My brother, for example, did a social sciences degree and he works in information technology. Or a common thing that historians tend to go into would be like librarianship. So it really is kind of, the world is your oyster with a social sciences degree. I don't think there's any career that you wouldn't be able to go into as such. I think just as long as you tailor your applications to what they're wanting, I think you kind of will have it all, really.
Definitely. I think we probably should have restructured this PowerPoint to just be 3 slides, an introduction, you can do anything, and then end it. I think we could have done that in 5 minutes. We've got comms there as well in the chat there. Excellent one to get into. Essentially, the takeaway from this session is that, like Jess said, it is just about tailoring your application to whatever it is that you're applying for. We've already established that the transferable skills that you learn in a social science degree are relevant to any career discipline. It's just about how you tailor that in your application and get noticed by the employers. It's what's going to help. And again, this moves us nicely into our next slide about resources. There are plenty of resources online. Not only just Target Jobs have a really excellent careers advice page, it's sort of career discovery tab, that helps you by filtering by the particular job category and then gives you articles to read, companies that are hiring, placement providers, career advice. So the resources are there through Target Jobs. And then obviously Enterprise as well have a blog with thousands of articles on different subjects, not only just relevant to Enterprise, but anything in general. We also have our YouTube channel, Enterprise Rent-A-Car Jobs and Careers, that helps with CV building, skills that you can learn, everything from the job application stage all the way up to starting your graduate job. And Mark, I'll give you a chance to explain what resources Northumbria Uni have as well.
Yeah, I think you touched on it at the start, Louise, that, really take advantage of the resources that's available at your institution, whether that be, working with your careers, your employability advisors to book those one-to-one appointments. And I think often it's a case of just having a chat and reassuring, that reassurance that, the stage that you're at is kind of neither right nor wrong. I think, there's always something that you could be doing to take those next steps, and often having that chat to make sure that you're in the right direction can be really supportive. And I think, look at the online resources that are available as well. So in Northumbria, we have a careers online platform, and I'm sure most institutions will have something very similar, where we have things like career planning. We'll have kind of self-assessments, which will look at your strengths and weaknesses and employability. So thinking about those skills so you can start to develop that real self-awareness, and lots of different tools, like you say, CV builders, kind of online interactive interview simulators, lots of different, online interactive resources that you can take advantage of. And like I say, all institutions have really upped the game over the last couple of years to make sure that that's available both in person and online as well. So yeah, just have a look, and like I say, reach out. Something again I wish I'd done when I was a student, and perhaps engaged a little more in that. So yeah, that support's going to be there available for you to access. So yeah, take advantage of that as much as you can.
Definitely, thanks, Mark. And again, LinkedIn is a massive one, not only just for building your own personal brand, but also for networking. A lot of recruiters are on there. So LinkedIn as well is a great opportunity for you to start to use now. Again, it was something that I did not use when I was at university, and I wish I had. It is a bit confusing to get your head around at first, but there's plenty of YouTube tutorials out there. And I think Enterprise have how to use a LinkedIn or social media for job search application on our YouTube as well. So just before we wrap up for some questions, we did ask in a poll, did anyone think any of these careers we spoke about before the presentations? 64% yes, which is excellent, but we do have 33% as a no. So we really, really hope that by talking about this today, we've helped some of the people who were a no there learn a little bit more about potential career development opportunities and avenues that you can go into. And this has been helpful for you. Just want to open up the floor to any questions now. We do have a couple in the question boxes already, but please do pop some in there. We've got one here. What advice would you give to anyone who wants to work for Médecins Sans Frontières? I should have probably done that in a French accent. Or a similar organisation / non-government organisation. Mark, I don't know if you want to lead on this one.
Yeah, my advice, much like you just mentioned there, Louise, is use platforms like LinkedIn to do a little bit of research into kind of the variety of roles that are available and the various different pathways that it takes to kind of get into that. Where possible, if you can get internships, volunteering roles, work experience to build up to those kind of full-time applications, that's going to be really advantageous as well. But do as much research as you possibly can into the different, like I say, the criteria, the roles that are available, the application process, when those, when that'll be live, when the deadlines are. So as much research as you possibly can into those, and that can really help you to be prepared once those applications are there to be kind of to be submitted. So yeah, the more research you can do, the better.
Yeah, excellent. And we've got another one here. How can you use sustainability qualification for a specialized skill like energy or construction? Really, really great question. Again, it is just about how you take your experience and what you've learned and tailor that to a job application. Talk about what it is that you've learned in that qualification and how it's relevant to that career pathway, and then draw on that experience and use that in not only just your job application, but your cover letter, your CV, and then your interview as well. Jess, I don't know if you've got any tips on how to sort of tailor specific skills to a job application.
Yep, I think absolutely like you say, I know it might be a very specific skill that doesn't necessarily relate to the role that you're applying for, but the actual kind of competencies that you've gained whilst learning that skill will be. And additionally, on a flip side, if you're looking to apply for something that isn't necessarily something that you have experience of, look for a career where they're going to provide you with on-the-job training. You get a lot of kind of graduate schemes now where they will support you through certain qualifications. So that's always an option as well if you find that you want to apply for something that isn't necessarily completely related to what you're doing.
Yeah, 100%. And we've got Joy here in the chat. Do you think someone with a sociology degree can get into a sector like business or marketing after they graduate, or do you recommend doing a master's? I'll answer this one. Absolutely. Like we've mentioned already, the transferable skills that you learn in your sociology degree are really, really imperative to a business and marketing career. Again, Mark, I'm sure you agree with this one. Obviously, you head up sociology, and I'm sure that you agree that the skills that you learn there are very transferable to a business.
Absolutely, yeah. I think, again, always go to the employer, look at their criteria, but more often than not, as Louise mentions, it will specify that any degree discipline is able to apply for those. And as Jessica mentioned there, it's all about how you justify and the kind of rationale you provide to show the skills that you've developed over the course of your program and how you can apply that in that particular setting. And I will just say this, that it's not always essential for you to do a master's qualification. For most graduate schemes will, again, you're able to apply with an undergraduate degree of any discipline. So yeah, don't ever feel that it's kind of an essential requirement that you need to to go straight into a master's, unless you want to go and get a very specific, discipline area or something like that, where you want to increase your knowledge, and that's going to improve your chances of gaining employment in that area. It's not always an essential requirement.
Thanks, Mark. We've got a couple of moments left, so I'll answer a few more. We've got Mohammed. How can you work in business organisation without a business degree? I know social sciences provide a lot of skills, but can you work for business or management without a business degree? Again, the answer is yes for most employers. I know, obviously, as we spoke, Enterprise is a business management training program. However, we do not require someone to have a business degree to be able to apply for our program. We just want somebody that has a degree because we know that the transferable skills, and I know that goes for most employers as well. Just read the job description, make sure that you are happy that that job isn't requiring you to have a business degree. But at the moment, the majority of employers will only ask for a degree of some sort. They won't specify exactly what it is that they want that degree discipline to be in. We've got a couple in the chat as well. How can a second year student without any job experience to find an internship during the summer holiday? From Demi. Jess, I don't know if you've got any advice for Demi on how she can get into some internships.
I think just research. I know when I was looking for internships and graduate jobs, I used Target Jobs, also Prospects. They all kind of demonstrate internships that are out there and ways that you can kind of get on them without necessarily work experience. Not everybody will have had a part-time job, and that's absolutely fine. So I think just make sure when you're researching your job, look for academic skills that you can relate to what they're asking for, if not necessarily work experience.
And I'll just add to that as well, as it's not only, in terms of internships and any opportunity to an extent, it's not always just what's advertised and out there. So, if you are on a platform like LinkedIn, why not reach out to a particular individual or an organization and see if you can generate a conversation. Now, it might be the case that they're not necessarily advertising an internship, but it doesn't mean that they don't have scope to offer you a couple of weeks of work experience or something like that over the summer as well. So, if you're aware of organizations or particular companies that you'd like to work for, then why not be really bold and send them your CV with a really strong cover letter and show the passion and the kind of the skills that you have. And worst case scenarios, they might not get back to you, but you just never know where that can lead to or what that can generate. So yeah, just be really, really bold with that.
Great point, Mark, as well. You're not going to lose anything by applying for something, even if you feel like you aren't qualified. All that's going to happen is you're either going to be in the same position that you were before you applied, or you're going to have a prospective job. So just apply for things, tailor that application, and just try and get on as much experience as possible. To answer the other question from Precious in the chat, in developing a professional CV, does volunteer work count? Absolutely. Volunteer work, hobbies and interests, sports teams is massive because it showcases teamwork, time management. So anything at all that you have done, it doesn't have to be academic or work related. It can be any aspect of your life at all, is really important for building up that CV. I'm going to end things now, but the moderator has popped in the chat a URL with Enterprise's application on there. So if anyone is interested in our opportunities, please do follow this link. I'll pop it in again for placement, internships, and our graduate scheme. But thank you so much to Mark and Jess and everyone who's watched today. We've really, really appreciated you coming on. And thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks now. Bye.